So I'm pleased to welcome Lisa Erickson to the stage. Lisa. Lisa's going to introduce a short student video we wanted to share with all of you today. Lisa is the manager of community engagement and outreach at Station 20 West in Saskatoon. You've already heard about some of the good work that Station 20 West does. You will recall that Station 20 West in Saskatoon's inner city is the U of S. The U of S works to strengthen and build community-university relationships aimed at growing social, educational, economic, and health equity through research and experiential learning. Please welcome Lisa Erickson.
Good afternoon. I'm delighted to be here. I'm going to say a few things about the video that you're about to watch. So this animation project, it focuses on undergraduate mothers with lived experience of poverty who collaborated to create animated graphic narratives. The animated video that you'll see is the first of two and endeavors to make space for an underrepresented student population. It traces strategies of survival among university, inner city, and home worlds, and aims to meaningfully distill the complex intersections of racialization, poverty, and gender to cultivate empathy and deeper understanding within the university and better support students. Additionally, the animation also shines a spotlight on community resources at Station 20 West and invites people living in Saskatoon's inner city and beyond to access available supports and services to claim fairer health and education outcomes. So with that, we'll watch the video.
My name is Angel Shingoos, and I am a 23-year-old Indigenous woman. My mother is Cree and my dad is Soto. I grew up in the inner core of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I lived in the city my whole life and have never lived on my reserve. Every now and then I'd go live with my dad in Grand Prairie, Alberta, but I mostly lived with my mom. My mom was a single parent and raised me and my brother and sisters. She raised us living from house to house in poor neighborhoods, but I always felt like we lived in a loving home. I always thought that I had a great childhood. Our life and hers wasn't always easy. Alcohol abuse was a struggle in my community. Although we lived in difficult circumstances, my mom taught me a lot of things and raised me to be strong. In many ways, the only way I knew how to be was strong, hard, and shy. My life was complicated. I thought it was normal to live with low expectations. I didn't feel that I really had anything to do that felt important or real, so I gave into the party life. I got pregnant when I was 16, and I didn't really like the way that I was living or what was happening around me. At that time, I was living from house to house. It wasn't stable for me and my baby. I gave birth to my son. Soon after, when he was a few weeks old, I knew right then that this moment, was going to be a crossroads. I needed to change my life. I remember that very moment, I had my baby boy sitting in his stroller and we were sitting together at the bus terminal. I didn't know where to go. I decided that I needed a different life. I wanted opportunities and chances for me and my son. I needed to get my life on track to a better, healthier future for me and my baby boy. That's the moment that really pushed me to go to school and to find my own house, my space, and my place. I decided that graduating grade 12 was my best option. When I went back to high school, I started to reach out to different organizations in my community, and they helped me and encouraged me. As a mother living in the core, I found supports in the Station 20 West building. I got a Kids First worker and realized all the different supports that the building had to offer. I had gotten my baby immunized there and started getting good food boxes. I loved the Good Food Box program and I became a coordinator too. It made me feel like I was doing something good for my family and for the community. I liked the Mother Center too. It is a great place for me to relax and have good conversations with other mothers in the community. All these supportive organizations have helped me a lot through my everyday challenges. I felt a sense of value in these organizations, like I was a part of something and I wanted to do more. I think that some people might feel afraid to talk to somebody or that they can't reach out. maybe because they are too shy like I used to be and still am a little bit. It took me a long time to connect with the people working there, but once I did, I started to feel comfortable. After the successful feeling of graduating grade 12, I thought if I can do this, then I must go further and pursue a university degree. I honestly never thought that a person like me could graduate grade 12, let alone go to university. But the people in these organizations at Station 20 West support me in a way that made me believe that I was capable of doing anything. I feel like I can be a strong, positive, and realistic role model to my Indigenous community. I hope my actions can inspire others to make the same choices I did and not to give up on getting an education. I think that becoming a teacher will help me work and contribute to my community and society. I hope my daily life choices can inspire and help other young First Nations people like me. As a university student, I still reach out to the Station 20 West building. I get to do fun projects with the University Engagement Office, which also helps university students who live in the core. My historical context, my history, and my past are still a part of my everyday life and shape who I am today. I now have 3 kids, and I am working towards my bachelor's degree in education. It is really hard. I face many challenges on a daily basis. I work through them every day. This one time my grandpa came to visit me and I was doing homework, folding laundry, and rocking my baby in her car seat all at the same time. My grandpa was pretty surprised that I was doing all these important tasks at one time. I am a university student, I am a mother, I live in the core, I am all that wrapped in this body every day. I know it means a lot of things to a lot of people. There are people like me who are trying to create a positive change, and we are actually just pushing back at the system that put us there. We can accomplish anything. It doesn't matter how many good choices you make, it will always be hard to get out of this cycle. It's a lot of hard work, and the Station 20 West building understands the struggles and barriers that most of my people have to deal with. They are helping to empower the community. We need to encourage one another and help one another. We have the right to be anybody and do anything. I'm learning what solidarity means, and I think that's what my relationships with my family, my culture, and my supports have been all about. Going to university is really hard, and I'm still figuring out how to be good at it. But no matter how hard it is, I always remember the struggles that I have been through. When I think of my children's faces and futures, I always pull through. It is worth it.
Great video, isn't it? These credits are really important that are rolling here. It took a lot of collaboration and hard work on the part of many people to make that video happen. So we invite you to watch that video a second time, a third time, to digest it and to think about it in relation to your work as staff and as faculty here at UofS. We encourage you to share it with your networks, to share it with your colleagues and discuss it with your colleagues, and use it as a teaching tool if you find yourself in the classroom, and also to connect with us should you want to explore other possibilities about that video. The animation project that resulted in this video embodies the values that underpin the work of the Community Engagement Office at Station 20 West, a commitment to ethical collaboration, to ensuring that projects are meaningful and impactful for communities and academically rigorous, to honoring knowledge and knowing in its different forms, and to building equity and reconciliation. We recognize the rich legacy of outreach and engagement at UofS, while incubating community university collaboration connected to teaching, learning, research, and artistic work. We're busy linking local conversations and learning with broader conversations that span Turtle Island and beyond. I know I'm in the presence of community-minded collaborators here today, so please know that the Community Engagement Office invites you to connect with us and collaborate on a shared journey of learning, unlearning, and reconciliation. I'll close with some important thank yous, recognizing the outstanding team that brought the animation project to life. So we'll save our applause till the end. Thank you to artists Jane McWhirter and Mike Tremblay, to mentors Rachel Molina, who is here today, we'll get a wave, Rachel Fiddler and Leah Archand, to Angel Shingoos and Tanya Gurton. Thank you for sharing your stories as catalysts for learning and change. The project is the brainchild of Lise Cossack-Curry. Lise is here today. Graduate student in community health and epidemiology, collaborator, connector, mother, and champion for equity. Lise is a community navigator with our office whose commitment to this project and leadership throughout didn't waver through all its twists and turns. So please join me in thanking the project team.
Stay right here, my friend Lisa. Lisa Erickson and I, my name is Candace Wasacase-Lafferty. I'm the Director of Aboriginal Initiatives here on campus, and it's just been my pleasure to spend the day with you all today listening to these phenomenal speakers. Probably about 5 years ago, I was able to meet Lisa for the first time. She became our lead down at Station 20 West around the same time I was assuming my position here, and we've had a lot of great collaborations. Her message is sincere, and it is a good one. She is open and inviting to all. If you have not had an opportunity to spend any time at Station 20 West, and I know many of our faculty have, many of our students, many of our local core community see that as our doorway to the University of Saskatchewan. I'll take this moment to recognize Lisa, her work, and say thank you very much. Welcome. We have already begun session number 4, which is enhancing the Indigenous student experience. We are proud to bring forward a couple of individuals today. It's going to be a mixture of both the staff of the University of Saskatchewan and the students of the University of Saskatchewan, talking about the everyday realities of our experience and how we work together to find solutions. It's not always easy, but it is our shared responsibility and our shared struggle, as well as the shared opportunity. We hope this session will inform you. We hope to make you hope to make you laugh, and we hope to make you think, and so we are very proud to be your final session of the day. To begin our session, I'm going to call up two of my favorite colleagues on this campus, two women who have committed themselves to this university. One is from the Muskeg Lake Nation, and I'm talking about Evette Archand, College of Education in ITEP. Beardies? Yes. Well, I always thought all Archands were from Muskeg. Where's Eugene? You're supposed to tell me these things, Eugene. Come on. Okay. Oh, there's Archands everywhere. Okay, well, all right. But I do know that my other friend, Val Arnott-Peltier, who was for a long time friend of the College of Nursing, now within the College of Medicine, is from Waterhen Lake as well as from Beardy. So we are a big community and an eclectic one. These two are going to share a little bit about the Aboriginal Advisory Circle, its role on campus, and its commitment to this university. And we do have a PowerPoint. I'm looking over to Jordan. Just a quick shout out. Jordan has been incredible today. Quick hand for Jordan. He's made this look very easy. And Danette? Also sitting, Danette has walked away, but Danette has been our runaround go-to person. She knows everything that's happening here. If you not see her, she's made this day possible. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Evette and to Val. And afterwards, I'm going to call up our student panel, who's just over there waiting in the wings.
Thank you so much. The work that we did with this session was also a part of our good friend Donner Vanderbilt and also Matt Dunn. We'll just get both of them to stand up. So they were part of our committee that helped make this possible. I'm sitting. But also we did it in collaboration with our Aboriginal Advisors Circle. And so I'm going to get all of our circle members to please stand up too. And you'll see that there's 40 representatives. There may not all be here, but they come from various colleges and programs and departments on this beautiful campus. And without their support, when we talk about reconciliation, that we really see that reconciliation is a part of our everyday lives. And that without these wonderful people, that it would make my job definitely a lot more difficult, and that we really rely on them, and that our students really rely on the people that we have on our Aboriginal Advisor Circle. So you'll see all of our circle members. Jordan, I'll just get you to move to the circle members sheet. That you'll see that there are 40 people, and that we do meet on a regular basis, and we'll go through that in a little bit. So you'll see that we're from everywhere on campus, and that we meet on a regular basis. And without that support, I know that I speak for all of our circle members that we wouldn't be able to be as strong as we are on an individual basis.
She must be tall. I just wanted to take a second and just reflect on Louise Half's teachings this morning, because she not only caused us to reflect on the storms in our lives, but she also caused us to laugh when she talked about being upside down in the ditch. But anyhow, I do want to acknowledge the elders in the audience and those that offered their prayers for good, positive outcomes today. I want to talk a little bit about the history of our circle. We did start way back in 2002 as a support circle, and it really was inclusive even way back then of a number of people. Back in those early years, Charlotte Ross, who many of you remember, myself, and Evette felt a really strong need to get together to provide some support for one another. Many of us were probably the only ones in our department, in our units, and it can be very lonely when you're the only Indigenous person in your area of discipline. So we started getting together back in 2002 to share information, to support each other, and just to provide that circle concept. We were formalized as a committee of the advising council back in 2014, and really, we are told and we feel strongly that we are a strong circle, that we do support each other, and that we do have a lot of fun at our meetings, but we do get a lot of work done as well, as you'll see.
So we meet once a month at the end of every month, and we report to and we make recommendations to not only the Vice Provost of Teaching and Learning, but also we make recommendations to the Advising Council. So we try to, whenever we have new staff that are Aboriginal staff that are coming to our campus, we invite them to come to our meetings, because I think that we're more strong in that unity.
We also invite the student leadership to our team as well, because, I mean, that is who we're working with and for in terms of the work that we do as advisors and coordinators and others right across campus. So we feel really strongly we need to have the students at the table with us, and to have those student leaders from the Indigenous Grad Student Council and the Indigenous Student Council is really, really important. We do have some successes that we wanted to highlight a little bit. We are formally now recognized on the university website as a group. We do have terms of reference and reporting structures, but still honor the ways of being of who we are as Indigenous people, and that includes starting off with a prayer as part of our circle each and every time. And we do offer that ability for prayer from whatever belief system that each of our members come from. So it is very inclusive in that regard. Again, we do have a voice with the Advising Council. We do meet fairly regularly and have a voice with Patty, and we're really happy that we have that opportunity. And we do feel heard. We do feel that it does strengthen our ability to take the voice of our students, families, and communities forward in a very good way at the university. There are many challenges that our students face, and even that we face as Indigenous people working on this campus. But having, I guess, that collective voice does give us, each and every one of us, some strength. And that support for each other.
So we do have, every summer we do get together and we look at different initiatives that we feel that are really important for us, and to also represent our student voice. So we were very enlightened when we were asked if we wanted to put these words down, and then we came up with our own strategic document. And so that document is going to be in the hands of our Vice Provost, and some of the group, some of our findings were that we need to enhance student success and retention, But we also need to look at the social and cultural and academic student advising. We also are, because we're working with Aboriginal people on a regular basis, we also need that professional development. And also we need to always look at our mandate and our vision to make sure that we're on the right path and that we are speaking for all the people that are voiceless. So that's just a beautiful picture of us at Wanuskewin.
And yeah, that's my big face there. I couldn't get in the photo any other way. We wanted to leave you with some of the values that we have adopted and that we really value as Indigenous people as part of our circle. And so I'm not going to read them all out to you. You can read them for yourselves. But really looking at the different value systems that we value as Indigenous people in relation not only to ourselves, but in relation to our students, and I would say to our communities and our elders as well. Hi, Wanuskewin.
Actually, before you two take off, I'd really appreciate it if you were to stay with us on stage. When we bring our students up towards the end of the day, we're also going to open it up to you guys to have some questions with both our staff and our students. So with that, I'll have Evette and Val join us on stage, and I'd like to call forward our students. And if I could have, I'm going to just say the seating order, and then I'll take a chance to introduce you. So can we have Katey, and then we'll have Dallas, Jade, Rhonda, and then Terrance, please. There's 5? Okay, come on up. I'll make it work. That is just perfect, and I think we have enough microphones and waters for all. So I'm going to begin with introducing our first student. Our goal in bringing you a panel today, we knew the most effective way to talk about the student experience was from the students themselves. I think some of the best focus groups we've ever had with university, particularly administration, is to hear right from the service providers, from the service people, you know, what are the things that Indigenous students, what do they like about us? What don't they like? What advice do they have for us? And I think the most powerful stories we're going to hear are going to be the stories from the students that we have up here today. So to begin with, we got Katey Elliott. Katey Elliott is actually from Selkirk, Manitoba, and grew up on the coast. She is a Metis student, and she's a third-year student in the College of Medicine, and we are looking forward to your thoughts. Next to her is our Indigenous Students Council President, Dallas Fiddler, no stranger to most of us here. He's constantly on television too, but you've noticed that? There's Dallas. He is from the Waterhen Lake First Nation, and he's a third-year student in political science. Next to him, we have Jade Roberts. She's third year from the College of Education. She's from the Lac La Ronge area, and she's also a student in ITEP. Rhonda Herman, so nice to meet you. I think we have crossed paths before, but it's nice to see you today. She's a student from La Loche, and she's also enrolled in SUNTEP. So we have some great future educators with us today. And finally, on the end is, I think you're probably my cousin. Are we cousin, Terry? So Terrance Peltier is from the Cowes First Nation, Treaty 4. How many here from Treaty 4? There we go. Thank you. I knew there was a reason why you and I got along. And it's very hard sometimes when you're sitting in the heart of Treaty 6 territory. You have to find your community. So that's just a little internal joke, and most of you will get it. Okay, so Terrance Peltier, actually he's the former chief of Cowes First Nation. He's now a PhD student with us in the College of Education. Actually, most of us had an opportunity to hear Terrance speak even last week during Aboriginal Achievement Week, where we discussed indigenization from the student perspective. We've arranged for you an eclectic group, a diverse group, a very knowledgeable group. Each panelist will be given an opportunity to answer 2 questions, and I am absolutely thrilled to be your moderator. I think because of the lack of room on the stage, I'm just going to shift this way, and I'm going to talk to you guys from here. And we'll go in speaking order down the road, starting with Katey. And my first question, Katey, what has been your experience as a student here at the University of Saskatchewan?
Yes. Oh, I just really need to get intimate with this microphone. Okay. So Tanzania, my name's Kate Elliott. I am Métis, and my family's from Selkirk, Manitoba. My family names are Gunn and Lyons. I have a background in nursing and public health from the University of Victoria, and came out here to pursue medicine. A lot of things really drew me to the University of Saskatchewan and the College of Medicine in particular. A lot of it had to do with its Aboriginal engagement, Aboriginal health electives, and the Making the Links program, which is a 2-year practicum certificate in global health, sorry about that. And I think that was something that was really attractive for me. I was really involved in my community back home, and one of my biggest apprehensions was to leave my community, and I did receive a lot of kind of pushback when I did choose to leave. And I think overall it's been a wonderful experience. I can't speak to how important it is to have cultural events and to be able to find a community on campus for students who aren't from Saskatoon. I think it's been very much a lifeline for me, and I've had great experiences so far.
Thank you, Katie. Same question, Dallas. Tell us about your experience here.
Tanse na wago magantik katapato tansiga sun sigip sagay ganutsinia tawao. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dallas Fiddler, and I'm from the Water and Lake First Nation in Treaty 6 territory in northern Saskatchewan. I just want to kind of give a quick rundown about my experience here at the University of Saskatchewan, and also a lot of the stories that I've heard. And I think it's important to tell my story not only as a student, but also balance it with the stories I've heard from students. And I came in an important time, and I started in the Indian Teacher Education Program, and in a time here I've experienced the very similar realities to early Canadian history, and it begins with the Vision 2025 document that the president of this institution was tasked to do, and that was eliminate duplicitous programs. And a part of those programs did involve programs like the Indian Teacher Education Program, like the nursing program. And why I bring this up, you can kind of tell in a crowd, there's some members in the crowd that are uneasy, and why I bring this up is because I think it's important and it's crucial that we look back at how far we've come here at the University of Saskatchewan. This is a part of our history. This is a part of the institution's history, and so that's, I wanted to start off by that, and I wanted to start off by saying, I started off in the Indian Teacher Education Program, a program that has, built community and made students comfortable coming to an institution like this. As big as it is, it certainly is scary leaving home to pursue an education, especially when you're the first out of your family, and especially if you're maybe even a single parent. And I have to acknowledge, I have to stay close to my roots here, and I have to say thank you to a program like the Indian Teacher Education Program for making me feel like home and continuing to do so. I love the program, and I'm in arts and science now. They still want me back, which is great, but but I've decided to pursue another path, and just leaving on a positive note on this is, in the 3 years that I've been here, I've seen I have not seen that ever. Sorry, I've seen the reluctant side of students. Students not willing to engage in with Indigenous groups, and I've also seen the positive side. I've seen, especially in my time here as president of the Indigenous Student Council, I've seen more student groups, non-Indigenous student groups, come up to us and asked, can we have a seat delegated for an Indigenous student on our council? And that's one of the positive positive things that I'm seeing here at the university, and I'm proud. And I think that it's our president and the direction that our university is taking that's inspiring students to take those steps also. Thanks.
Thank you, Dallas. Appreciate that. Jade, I know you're from a northern community. Tell us what your experience has been.
So I'm my third year of ITEP. I moved to Saskatoon 4 years ago, and it was a huge change for me. But being in ITEP has been really, really helpful, and finding the Aboriginal community here on campus has been really, really helpful for me. So my experiences on campus have been really positive. I've been able to interact with a lot of my culture and learn a lot about my culture that I didn't know, so that was awesome. And I think ITEP and events like Aboriginal Achievement Week and the ITEP Round Dance, and just being able to work hands-on in most of my courses and to incorporate culture into most of my courses has been a really positive experience for me. I have seen like the mainstream side as well too. My teaching area is phys ed, so I take a lot of kin classes and a lot of like other mainstream classes that aren't ITEP. So I've seen that side, and it's been really hard to fit in sometimes in some of those mainstream classes. Sometimes I'm the only Aboriginal student in the class or in the room. And when there's professors that don't put any Aboriginal content into their course, it's really hard to relate to, and I've noticed that a lot, and I think that's something that does need to change, and it's also a real eye-opener when you see that, and it makes me realize why some of the non-Aboriginal students on campus are kind of ignorant, I guess, to our culture, because they're not being exposed to it in their coursework. Like ITEP students have that opportunity, which is great. Other than that, though, everything has been really positive, and I'm really happy to be here. So,
Thank you. Thank you. Rhonda.
I'm Rhonda. I'm from Awash, and I am Métis. Similar story to Dallas. I am the first of my family to ever move and to be at the university. It is scary. Like, when I first started, like, I didn't know a soul on campus, and I was kind of scared, thinking I was gonna quit in like 2 weeks into the program. But then I'm still here. Like, I'm almost on my first semester. 3 more years is just around the corner. I find like I'm in the SUNTEP program, and like, if I may, I'll give it to the SUNTEP program, because we're like a really close-knit community. Like, everybody gets along, and like, they're just my family, and like, I don't see myself quitting until I get that degree. And like, sitting here, like, I'm very honored, because not only will I be the first in my family to ever get a university degree, but to be in the SUNTEP program, it's an honor. Like, I used to feel so lost, like, being in the city and stuff. I've lived here before, and then I moved back to my community, and then I came back to further my education, and I'm here. Like, I could tell a story about it, and I find that very intriguing. Like, I guess there's no words to describe how it really feels until you're in here getting your education, pursuing with what you really want. And after I get my university degree, I hope to pursue this goal of teaching Aboriginal culture, I guess, like Indigenous studies, and to further it. And SUNTEP does a really good job at doing that. Thank you.
Rhonda, before I let you to pass that mic, no, hang on for a moment, Rhonda. I have a follow-up question for you.
Okay.
You said there was, a few weeks in you felt like quitting, and then you talked about family. Can you tell me why you didn't quit?
Well, SUNTEP, there's a few of us that's in the first year program, and like, I thought the work was being overwhelmed, and like, I didn't know, like, because I'm the first in my family to ever come here, like, I felt so alone. And then I kind of went out there and reached out, and one of my classmates, she just told me straight out, like, we're a family, like, you can't quit on us. And that kind of changed my mind, and like the further I reached out, like the more they welcomed me into the group. And I like I said, like, we're like a big family, like the first and the second year. I don't see the third years or fourth years often, so I can say first and second year. So like that made me, like I said, like being part of the family. So that made me stick with them even more.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that answer. Terrance, you've been on this campus a very long time. I heard you tell a story earlier. You've been here since 1988, so there must be something about this experience that you're enjoying. But what's your story? Tell us about being a student at the U of S.
Well, my sisters were the first ones to go to university down in Regina, and they both became teachers. And they suggested, another friend suggested that I try university as well, but I really didn't think that I could do it. And the only reason that I came to Saskatoon was I was accepted at the ITEP program, and it was a First Nation Indian teacher education program. Otherwise, I don't think I would have came here. When I came here, I come from the south, and to me, Prince Albert is north. And like, I'd never been here before. I didn't know anybody. The most important thing I think that got us by the first few years was sort of having some spiritual support in the community. That was really important. The other thing was having the academic support in ITEP, because when I came into the program, most of us that came in were adult learners. We hadn't had the chance in our younger years to be able to attend university because there was no programs available for us. So there was many of us came in our 30s. We already had our children, we had our families, we were supporting. And I found that was important as well, because we had a lot of fellowship with people who were struggling with the same things. We had our kids to look after. They were small. When we came here, we didn't know anybody. We never went out for a whole year because we didn't have a babysitter. And so the one thing that I thought when we first came here was, I did go through pretty fast. I think I finished my degree in about 2.5 years, so I took the opportunity to go to law school, which was a really different experience. And in 1990, if anybody was here, I always say that to my students because I teach. I said, "You remember in 1990? They're never even born in 1990." It was Oka. It was the summer of Oka. And there was a big disturbance out in Montreal, and there was a policeman killed over the summer. And that fall, in September, there was 13 First Nation students admitted for the first time in the College of Law. And it was conflict. And it went along with women coming into the college as well. So we had both women coming into the college for the first time in First Nations. It caused a big thing in the college. Like, there was a lot of conflict with the students, conflict with the upper years, conflict with the instructors, because it was change for them. It was change. If you looked at the college before 1990, it's all like white men. It's not that I got anything against them, but I mean, that was why it was conflict. And so when in that year as well, I remember the last year I was there, Dean McKinnon, I call him Dean McKinnon, he was the president. He was pretty good with me. And I had to go see him because by then I had 13 children, believe it or not. We were keeping 13 kids. We started with 4, but we ended up taking in many children, and we raised a lot over the years. And I told him I can't go on because I'm feeding them. You have to feed them. Nobody feeds them. The only parents feed them. So I said, I can't. But this one time I had a death back home and I had to go. And while I was there was this big thing that happened at university. And it was the upper years had a female entertainer in their room. And they got caught about. And when I was, the day of the funeral, we got home and my family comes along and they put the newspaper on the table and they said, "What are you guys doing in your university?" And on the front page of both of the daily newspapers in Saskatchewan was the entire Dean of Law's address to the student body at the college. And he reamed us out. I didn't even have to be there, but I was reading his words, they were ringing in my ear. And that was because of the attitudes that the upper year men had towards women. And now they're going to go out into the workforce and they're going to, represent law. And over the years, I've seen a lot of bad decisions happening against Indian women in this province, against Indian people. And I can't help but think that was that cohort that I was there with in 1990 is the lawmakers today, is the ones making those laws, is the judges, is the lawyers, is the defense lawyers. Those are the ones. And, I think that now that we're together, we're facing these issues, not in conflict. This is not conflict. You chose to be here. I chose to be here. We chose to address an issue too, so that we could mutually understand our positions. And I think that in 20 years or 30 years, I think the values that we decide on, we're going through, in all of our society, we have Trump. Like, you're either going to choose Trump or choose Canadian values. I say put up your wall and stay on that side. Don't come over here. As Canadians, we have to. And there was one quote here, I just wanted to end off with this. The last quote was one of the students said, "We can't have reconciliation without decolonization." And I can tell you right now, as an Indian that comes from a reserve, that we don't have treaty rights. We're here because it's a policy of the federal government to fund some of these students. I don't get funding. My experience as a university student, both in graduate school for masters and PhDs, I was funded by the university. I bummed around all during my master's course. I wouldn't be in PhD unless the university offered me a scholarship in first year and in second year. I understand that there's some other issues that there's some other programs that the university has put up. One is the former foster children. They can come here. That's good because I looked after a lot of them. I better end off there. That's my experience as a student. Thanks.
Thank you, Terrance. You raised an interesting point, and I think I'm going to ask the other panelists to reflect on reconciliation. And it's interesting, you hear this conversation happening around the Gordon Oaks Red Bear Student Center often, and non-Indigenous students come to the center and ask what it means for us. And so I think I would like to give our panel an opportunity. What comes up for you when you hear the word reconciliation? What does it make you think of?
I think for reconciliation, it's something that needs to happen, but I always need to question and make sure that everyone's on the same page and what does that mean to the other person, right? Because I know what it means to me, but what does it mean to them? Because it's a two-way street, it's a relationship, it's something that's going back and forth. It's not something that Indigenous people can do all by themselves. I think I was very hopeful getting to do some work with the TRC and seeing the calls to action. And now I'm just really hoping that we see the action and the positive change that's supposed to come from it. So often it's with our people where we sit down, we engage with government, we engage with institutions, and we talk about it, and we're left very hopeful, but then we never see the follow through. And I think there's almost more harm in doing that than it is just to say, nope, we don't want to talk to you. One other point I wanted to just speak about is kind of safety on campus. And I think just like reconciliation, cultural safety has been quite the little buzzword, and indigenization, but what do these really mean and how do we create meaning for it? I think as Indigenous students, to be able to find a place where you feel safe, to bring your whole self and not have to walk in one world or another is really critical for our well-being and our mental and spiritual health, which I don't know if I would still be in medical school if I didn't have that opportunity to be able to connect with culture. And I think, you know, you always have one more kind of weight in your backpack that you're carrying around, because most of the time, you know, within healthcare, it's not a safe place for us as Indigenous people. The values and the beliefs and the structures are very head-on and butt heads with our way of being, our beliefs, as well as looking at the systemic racism that is held within that system. So I think that's one thing that I think is really important when it comes to reconciliation, is communicating how, you know, what safety is and how important it is to foster something like that. And it should really be a right for every student that comes here. And I know there's a lot of talk of university, you should be able to say what you want, whatever you want, and how you think it, and how, I don't know what the proper quote is or the proper technical term, but I think that shouldn't come at the right of our students to feel safe here.
Well said. Dallas, what do you think about when it comes to reconciliation?
I started off, I'll be honest, I cringed a bit. And one of the reasons why I cringe is because you know, failing to recognize that the policies that have, you know, held First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people down, the policies that, you know, Canada has created, and, you know, also the Indigenous Northern Affairs Canada, and so that's where that cringe stems from. And, you know, while our parents and grandparents have attended residential schools and so forth, where those policies are actually like still in place. You can there's still policies that may not directly forcefully remove a First Nations child to attend a residential school, but there is a policy in there that certainly allows the government to take a child from their homes. And I'm talking about the social services, and so when we're talking about reconciliation and the fact that there's still policies that are still holding our people down, it's frustrating, and that's where that frustration stems from. We're you know, Canada, for instance, right now is it's coming up here pretty quickly. They're going to be celebrating 150 years, and, you know, we're celebrating 150 years and without recognizing, you know, Canada's deepest, darkest pasts. And I think that's important. And, you know, that's one of the things that I'm looking for when Justin Trudeau gives a speech, when maybe these presidents of various institutions, I'm looking for them to recognize that there were people here before. There were people who have lived on this Turtle Island, we like to call it, as Indigenous people for thousands and thousands of years. And, you know, where I've kind of shifted it a bit stems from it comes from a TED Talk. You know, I've listened to TED Talks over the past few years, especially going to attending the university, and, you know, one of the quotes within that TED Talk got me thinking. You know, do we begin stories with the arrival of Christopher Columbus, or do we begin our stories with the arrows of the First Nations? And so that TED Talk, that quote alone began, you know, got me thinking about reconciliation. And you know, that's what I'm waiting to see. I'm patient, you know, and our people have been patient. And, you know, even in my time as ISE president, I'm patient. But, and, you know, there are small steps to, you know, our institution is taking, but I think we need to turn this into action now.
Well said, Dallas. Thank you. Jade.
When I think of reconciliation, I personally, like for myself, I think of being able to walk in both worlds. So that being like traditional with my own culture, and also the mainstream world, the Western way of thinking. Being able to walk in both of them and be successful, and not to have any judgment. I think that's really important. And I think not only for myself as an Aboriginal person, but I think everyone should be able to do that. And that's what reconciliation means to me, that everyone should be able to do that, and everyone should have the knowledge of Aboriginal history and Aboriginal culture and traditions. So not just for Aboriginal people, but for everyone. And it's really important to me too, as an upcoming future teacher, to teach my students that. So that's big for me, and yeah.
Rhonda, do you have something you'd like to share?
Reconciliation means, well, I used to work for a residential school. I used to be a call agent. I've worked for them for over 2 years. And when reconciliation comes up, I always think of those people that I used to speak with, all those survivors. And for reconciliation to happen, like the healing process and the forgiveness has to happen first. Like, we as a community, like everybody in Canada, has to understand that these things actually happened, and for these stories to be heard. Like, it's affected like generations and generations, and it's still gonna keep going on unless we talk about it. So reconciliation, I think together as a group, like the whole Turtle Island, I guess, has to come together and recognize that residential school actually did happen, and these things happened to like the Aboriginal cultures, and it will take the whole community for to heal. Like, everybody has to come together and for it to heal. That's reconciliation for me.
And Terrance, I understand that you're actually a survivor.
Yeah.
And what do you think reconciliation looks like?
My two colleagues talked about children, and I was born in 55. I went to boarding school when I was 5 in 1960, and it was on my home reserve of Cowessus, and we seen a video. Well, I didn't see it. It was a video that was showed over here at the administration building a couple of months ago, and I know some of the people went there and seen it, and I started watching it. But whatever went on in there, that's how it was. Like, I mean, there's no other way of saying, like, that's how it was. And to understand reconciliation is basically, I think, to dispel the myths that Canadians believe about Indian people. And there are no bigger perpetrators of those myths than the government themselves, the Indian Affairs people that he was talking about. They make Canadians think that they're necessary for Indian people's lives. I was invited to meet the Prime Minister here a little while ago over at the Health Sciences building, and I was fortunate enough to ask him a question, along with the tribal chief of Saskatoon Tribal, and we both got the same answer. And to tell you the truth, I would have been better off taking a selfie with him, because it was nothing. If you listen to the Prime Minister's answer to my question, it is the most condescending, patriarchal, colonist statement that you could ever have. And it was so full of myths and mistruths. I was in high school when they told me about land claims on my reserve, 2 of them, in 1972. And I told him, we didn't get to one land claim until 1996. In those years, we lost a whole generation of children, my brothers, 3 of them. 1 died in residential school, was killed in residential school. 2 of them committed suicide right after residential school. There was on our reserves back home, Candace's reserves. Just like now, the suicides in the north. There was a lot of suicides. We lost a whole generation of young people, all of my family. And I was telling him, I said we didn't settle the one land claim until 96, and that did us a lot of good. But we had to go about 25 years that we lost that generation. And then I became the chief, and I thought we had to argue for the second land claim, and we won on the first instance on the second land claim. And then Canada decides they don't want to honor the decision, and they said no. So now he says, now we're there. We have a second land claim. What I did tell him was, settle the land claim, or we're going to lose the second generation. You know what he says? We can't be throwing money at the problem. We got to talk some more. The point was, this is a treaty right. Throwing money at the problem is you have to settle treaty rights. How can you throw money at the problem? That wasn't what I was asking him. I was telling him to settle the treaty right. The one thing I want to tell you here is, I'm a PhD student. I work with a lot of people. I co-author reports with other doctors, very intelligent people. I sit with people from all over the world. And I could author a report, and I could say all of these things, just like my friend here, Dallas, said, and that would be true. And all Indian Affairs would have to say, they'd say, no, that's not right. We gave them all this money last year. It's all spent. And everybody will believe them. All we are is Indians on a reserve. We have no rights. Reconciliation means you understanding that. We do not have rights. When he says, well, when I talked with the kids on the reserve, they want canoes and stuff like that. I was the chief of the reserve. We have canoes. We have a building for them. We take our kids up to L'Orange, Stanley Mission every year. And he says, well, that's what they want. You know why they would want that? Because twice, in 1988 when I came here, and in 2015 when I came here, the reason I came here was our house was unlivable. I could no longer keep children in my house anymore. It was unfit to live in. That's why I came here. If I didn't get the funding, if I could still look after my kids, I would still be there. But the house was simply unlivable. It's still unlivable as far as I know. So he made us think like we're all rolling in the dough, like we have treaty rights and stuff. Understand, reconciliation means we have nothing in this country. And that's what it means to me. You have to understand that. Like otherwise we're not going to get very far. We don't. We do not have rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Terrance. We've heard from this group of 5 today. I'm going to turn it over to you to ask a question, so get ready. But I wanted to make mention of the quotes that you're seeing come by you on the screens here tonight. They were captured by our friend Donna on our committee, and this captures what other students on this campus are thinking and saying. And they will be available in print form. I'm just looking, okay. And we have them here today? Okay, perfect. Absolutely. I made myself a note at the back door. There will be sheets of what you see here today. And I think take some time to read them. They're very powerful. So with that, I see Paul running up to the mic. You get the first question. Paul.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for your words. I really enjoyed listening to you. I don't really have a question, but it's more of a saying that I live by pretty much every day in Ojibwe. It's Namin Wendam Oma Wayan. And what that means is our survival as Indigenous people is a miracle. So that's what I live by every day. So I wanted to share that with you. Thank you very much, Big Wetch. I really enjoyed everything you had to say.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions for our group? This is a great opportunity. If you're an administrator, if you're anything and you want to have deeper insight on what our students are thinking, please take advantage of this.
Thank you
I
again.
had a suggestion for the college, actually, and I didn't get to make it earlier. And it was because I was over in the College of Education in the graduate program, and we have many, many international students coming to our college. And as in other parts of society, we have immigrant people coming to Canada and settling in different parts of our communities. And over the course of the last couple of years, I've had opportunity to speak with many of them from different parts of the world. And especially for the graduate students, when they come into Canada, they're expected to go into the classes that the rest of us go into, and the people assume that they understand Aboriginal, what's going on in Canada. I mean, that's a prerequisite to take the course. And I was talking with some of my Jamaican friends from the college, and it took about an hour to update them on where in their coursework these Aboriginal issues go, and how they fit into their coursework to bring a good understanding. They also brought up the idea as well, how come we have special rights and stuff like that, and when we come here, we all want to be multicultural. Well, we're the first people here. We have constitutional rights that supposedly guarantee our spot in the society. Unfortunately, when they come over here and they're not understanding of our backgrounds and our culture, that they adopt the same attitudes as other Canadians have towards Aboriginal people now. And it was my contention when we were talking over in the college that there ought to be a course that would be mandatory for international students to come to when they come to Canada, that it would be some kind of a generic course that they could take, and it would help them in their studies to understand where Aboriginal people are here now, not just the harshness of the residential school, but also the legal framework of where we are now. And so I think it would bring a lot of understanding to this community. I think we are the leaders that are responsible for bringing about this understanding. And we could go to other segments of our community, the taxi industry, whatever businesses where immigrant people are established, and we could bring an understanding like that. So I'd suggest that goes on sooner than later, and not as a volunteer position for some graduate students to do, but maybe as a paid position so that we could get a class going.
And on that note, thank you, Terrance. I know you have a strong opinion there. I'm very mindful we have about 5 minutes. I have Regan, and then I have Christina. If you could make a very brief question, and we are going to bring this to a close. So Regan, please. Thank you for waiting. I appreciate your patience.
Thank you very much. Dansin ni witu aganak, Regan Rat Mispanas ni Sika Asun. I come from Pinehouse Lake, Saskatchewan, in northern part of this province, and as well as the Lac La Ronge Indian Band. So it's good to see a fellow sister on the stage here today. My question is very simple, and first I just want to say thank you, Amin, for sharing your story. It's stories like yours and stories like Terrance's that need to be told and heard on this campus. That's the only way that I see reconciliation as a little bit more achievable here on campus. So thank you very much for sharing those. Lastly, I'll get to my question, and it's very simply, what does indigenization mean to you? We are going through a similar process here on campus of indigenization or reconciliation, or what you may like to call it. So I'd just like to ask my fellow peers what you think indigenization means. Thank you.
I don't have the most positive feel for this whole indigenization thing. I don't think it can happen before reconciliation. I think we're putting the carrot in front of the horse. And I want to ask, why are we doing this work? And for whose purpose is it serving, and what values is it meeting? From my limited work with it, it feels like it's something that benefits the institution but doesn't benefit our communities and our people, and it feels like a very unbalanced relationship.
Okay. Does anyone else have a quick comment? And then we're going to go to Christina. So it has to be incredibly brief. Look, I'm looking right at you, Terrance. No. No, Terrance. Thank you, Rhonda.
Indigenizing for me means keeping your culture strong. Like, I speak Dene, I'm fluent in Dene, and In my generation, like Gouache, we speak fluently in Dene. And now when I look at like the younger generations, like we're losing our language. And everywhere, like in Saskatchewan or wherever it is, like we all are losing our language because like in the curriculum, as soon as we enter kindergarten, like it's all English and there's no other language to teach it in. Like for the first step, indigenizing for me would be your language, which is your identity. Like if it's a Cree community, put Cree into the curriculum. Teach kids like that. I think that's what indigenizing is. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Christina, you get the last question.
Thank you. Thanks, students. It was good to hear your voices. I get a lot of my ideas from things that students suggest. So I was just wondering, when you look at the university and the colleges, what's one thing that you would say that the university could be doing that it is not doing right now to improve the Indigenous student experience? I'd just like to hear your ideas.
Okay. One thing, or do we say it in one word? I guess I think deans, speaking to the deans in the audience, speaking to the administration and also the faculty is, be prepared to go into the uncomfortable. Be prepared to look into policy that may affect students, not only Aboriginal students, but a lot of all students here on campus. And, that's in a very short way. If you want to talk to me after, by all means. But yeah, just be prepared to go into the uncomfortable and, not keep Indigenous people within the box, because we're going to find a way out. Yeah.
Excellent. Yep. Please, Jade. Yep. Rhonda? Uh-oh.
No, the one thing I think is that some of our programs that we have established become more permanent, I guess you would say, in terms of continuing year to year. And the reason I say that was I was teaching up at L'Orange for quite a few years with the teacher education program up there. And, they got this thing with that, what do you call that, skip the dishes thingy that was going on, and we didn't know whether they were going to have NORTEP or not, or at least the students did it. And so they're asking me, like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen with our college? And then ITEP is the same thing, and then are we competing with First Nations U? I don't know. And it would be, I think, a little bit more, give us a little bit more confidence to know that some of our programs are going to be funded year after year. I know the one thing over in the college that we have in our college that new this year is our master's cohort for our Indian principals. And so that's an extension of our bachelor program for ITEP. It's important because when I was taking, we try and mix up the courses over there. So we take some as a ITEP cohort, others we mix with the general student population. And when I was going into some of the classes with the master's cohort, I haven't got a clue what's going on in the provincial system for schools. I didn't have a clue in at least one class. So it's important that we have those things established, that the students can know from year to year that they're going to be able to take those courses. And I think it's incumbent on us now that we're into the graduate studies to create more leaders. Like, we need to have more leaders, creative thinkers, policy analysts. And those types of things I think are important that they continue. Just because Indian Affairs said they're not going to fund them anymore doesn't mean that it's not important. And shouldn't be letting Indian Affairs set the pace all the time for Indian people. Thank you.
Thank you. I heard a couple of words here I just want to reflect on. When working within our communities, when trying to create the change and have the confidence to do things, I think about the words I heard today about stability, consistency, operating with integrity. a nimbleness in the way we do things, and ultimately a humbleness. I want to thank the staff. I want to thank Val and Evette for participating with us today, and another thank you for Katey, for Dallas, for Rhonda, Jade, and Terrance. Thank you for joining us.
Wanuskewin now, thanks to all the students on the panel, and Candace, Evette, and Val, and also Lisa. The panel was very powerful, and equally powerful are the quotes that are up on the screen there if you've been watching what they're saying. At this time, I would like to ask Peter Stoichev to return to the stage to provide his closing remarks and to introduce the final speakers in our program.
Well, thank you, and thank you very much, everyone. Thanks to the students for that wonderful panel. And thank you, everybody, for staying here through a long and I found it hot day, and it's a warm room. Not because we're nervous, just because the temperature's high. It's been really wonderful. So much has been said and shared. I just want to make a couple of comments and then introduce our final two speakers, Blaine Favel and Eugene Archand. The comments first. Thank you to Patty, and thank you to Alex, thank you to Candace, and I know many, many other people who were responsible for making this day such a good one to start off what will be an annual forum at this university. I really thank you so very, very much. The amount of work that it takes to run something like this, to prepare for it, to run it on the day, I guess that means we're close to the end. And then to, thank you. Good. Are we done? Yeah, thank you. To set up an aftermath to this, which I'll talk about in just a minute. A lot of work goes into that, and I really want to thank you all very, very much. This has been an encouraging and stimulating set of presentations by the colleges, first off this morning, and the 70 posters downstairs. I hope you got to see some of them. A lot of work went into them. I know we can see them again on a website that'll be prepared. There's a lot of creative work that's being done here. Any one of us gets a chance to see a little bit of it, but it's only on an occasion like this that we can begin to see the true expanse of it. And so I thank all of those who prepared those posters as well. And I know very well that among the 17 colleges and schools we have at the university, there were many who didn't get a chance to present this morning and could have said terrific things about the sorts of work that they are doing in this respect, the aspirations that they have, and the measures that they've taken so far. Nonetheless, we have to be asking ourselves, and we received a lot of different ways of doing that on the screens here in terms of the words that were said at this podium over the course of the day. What kind of student do we want to be graduating from here? What kind of institution do we want to be from this point on? Everyone has a role to play in answering that, and to make this the best place it can possibly be for Aboriginal students and their communities, which is a way that I prefer actually talking about why we are meeting today, because I think all of that is so important. I want to remind everybody in closing, you know, the city watches an institution like this one, the largest cultural institution in the province, one of the top 15 research-intensive medical doctoral universities in the country, an institution that is a key to reconciliation, as Justice Sinclair said. The city's watching us, the province is watching us, the country is watching us. People beyond this country look to us to see what we're doing. And so it was wonderful to hear both what we are doing and the challenges to us to do so very much more. So there's much to be done while continuing the good work to change the culture. It's a process of learning, and as Sheila McLean said, a process as well of unlearning, and that's why it's going to be a long process. Many people have said that during the course of today, starting first thing this morning, and I think what we've heard here today underlines the fact that it is going to be a long process. It's going to take patience, and it's going to take, at times, impatience, and I'm sure we will all feel the latter frequently over the coming years. But that's why this event, in closing for me, is intended to be an annual one, so that the tough questions can be asked and we have an opportunity to try to answer them, to walk out of a room like this every year recognizing that those tough questions have been asked and we don't have answers to them yet, and that we have to begin to collectively find the answers to them. My understanding is that participants here will receive an evaluation form in the next few days asking about your experiences today. The usefulness of that is great, and one is that it will help us to organize always a better and better version of today over the next coming years. Posters will be archived on the Building Reconciliation website in the next week or so. Video recordings of today's sessions will be archived on that website as well over the next couple of weeks. I think that's crucial. Many people mentioned to me that they would hope to be able to see this. Sheila's talk, many of the comments that were made by the students and other presenters, and those will be on the reconciliation website, Building Reconciliation website over the next couple of weeks. And the scroll on the wall there that is giving up that form of itself is going to be compiled and reported back as part of a summary of the day's events on that website as well. It remains for me now to introduce the two final speakers for today, and I'm really privileged to be able to do that. You've heard a little bit about each of them. I'll start with Blaine Favel. If he's here, Blaine, he's here? Great. Blaine Favel served as the university's chancellor from 2013 to 2016. I'm sure many of you know that. He is a member of Poundmaker Cree Nation and an influential Plains Cree leader who has made significant contributions to scholarship, education, public service, and the Canadian public good. In addition to a Bachelor of Education, Mr. Favel has a law degree from Queen's University and an MBA from Harvard Graduate School of Business. He served as chief of the FSIN. He was awarded an honorary Doctor of Laws from this university in 2012, and during his term as chancellor, he has played a key role in guiding this university's planning and actions in the area of Indigenous education and engagement. I spoke about a couple of those roles before, but he was instrumental, crucial in ensuring that we had that first National Forum on Building Reconciliation here. And so it's a real privilege for me to ask him to come to the front of the room.
I'm really impressed you guys are not asleep. It's so warm in here. So maybe you'll be after my speech. I spoke too soon. I'd like to thank everybody for the event. I'd like to thank particularly Patty for organizing this great event. She was quite stressed out about how things would go, and her and Candace, and I can, I think on behalf of everybody, tell you it was a success, and thank you very much for your efforts. I've had a couple months now, and I also want to acknowledge before I start, I saw my Chancellor successor, Roy Romano, who, a very good friend, is here someplace. He's in the back, and he told me he was going to say a few words at my portrait unveiling in a few minutes, and he said, don't worry, he says, I'm kind and gentle in my speech, and Roy was the premier when I was a Grand Chief, and we were not always kind and gentle, and I said, Roy, I've never heard those two words associated with you. So, but he really is a great guy, so. So I've had a long time to think about what being Chancellor meant to me, and this is my story to a certain extent, a bit of a narrative. So there's so much good work going on here, I don't want to second guess or criticize anything, so if any of my comments are ever perceived that way, that's not my intention. But thinking about, one of the thoughts I thought was, just a basic question, how has the University of Saskatchewan affected me? And how have I changed or been shaped by this institution? And I thought about that, and that's a really hard question to answer, because how do you acknowledge how a family member has shaped you? How do you acknowledge how a sister or brother or an aunt or cousin? Because literally, the University of Saskatchewan becomes part of your family. I came here when I was 17 years old. I'm 52 years old now. I love this place now. I loved it then. Friends that I made when I was 17 and 18 here walking this door are still my friends. I've enjoyed watching their careers progress, both the Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people. And so that's what this university means to me. I love this place. It's been good to me. And it's been part of the theory or part of the concept of when our people talk about is, you'll hear sometimes when our people start an opening statement, they'll say, Wagutuwin, Wagumagantik, right? Relatedness, my relatives, all my relatives. And this is what this university is to a certain extent, is we're related through working on the same purpose, working on the same issues, and with the same passion, and that is to improve the quality of the learning in this place, make it a great place for students and a great place to attract the best educators in the world, and donors, which are always important. I've learned when being a board member. So I never grew up, I wasn't sort of sitting in Poundmaker when I was a little kid or Cut Knife High School saying, my goodness, when I grow up, I want to be Chancellor of the University of Saskatchewan, because quite frankly, I didn't know what Chancellor was. And it was a very good experience. I received an honorary PhD from the university a few years ago, and I made a presentation and I gave a bit of a speech, and then I was get a phone call, anonymous phone call, not anonymous, but a friend on behalf of a friend, so it was a little bit of anonymity, asking whether I would allow my name to stand to be Chancellor, and I said sure. I thought it sounded like a really cool title, and it sounded very Star Trek-y actually, because there's a Chancellor on Star Wars, I mean. And so I let my name stand, and lo and behold, I was appointed Chancellor, and it was through, I think, the efforts of one of the previous presidents, Eileen Bush-Vishniak, who was committed to Indigenous issues and who left here, and some people think under questionable circumstances, and I was part of the board when that decision was made. But she was a good lady, and I'm saying that but for Eileen Bush-Vishniak, I'm not standing before you. But for Eileen Bush-Vishniak, there's no Gordon Oak Centre as we know it now, because she was the president that made the commitment. So I always wanted to pay tribute to that woman, because even though what other people say about her, she deserves our respect, and she has mine. But the appointment itself was an act of reconciliation, and I took it that way. The appointment itself was an act of reconciliation, and that this was before the TRC report had happened, but it was the Senate's way and the board's way and her way of making an outreach to the Indigenous community, to our people. And I was honored when I took it. I said when I had my acceptance speech that I accepted it as an act of reconciliation to my people, and also that it was an honor that I did not own to myself, but it was an honor that I shared with Indian people generally, Métis people generally, Inuit people generally, and that it was an honor that I shared with all of my people. Following my appointment, I went to a sweat. I asked for an elder to pray for me and to pray for the work that we're doing here. His name is Fred Paskaman Agitit. He passed away. And also I had spent lots of time with my cousin Ben Weenie Agitit, who passed away as well. And we had a good sweat, and we prayed that everything would go well with my work here, that everything would go well for the university. That old man passed last fall, but his prayers are powerful, because we're here, and I'm still here, and we're all here together. When I became Chancellor, I'd go to board meetings, and I see some of the board members here. Two of them, if you can please wave your hands. They sat through the whole thing, and that shows a lot of commitment on behalf of our board. But I came to the board meetings, and my goodness, that was a terrible experience, because they'd give you like briefing books this big, right? And expect you to read them in about 3 days. And I think part of the trick was to give you so much information that you couldn't read it, and then when it came down to hard questions, I'm not saying this at you, but it kind of was the effect. It was hard to make decisions with that much material to read through, because they had no pictures for me. I need pictures when I'm trying to learn something. Anyways, but we go to these board meetings, and the university had one of the pillars, 4 pillars was indigenization, Indigenous things. And I'd ask at the board meeting, so what's going on, right? Where's our strategy? Where's our document? What are we doing? And I'd always be told by the person, the next board meeting we're going to have it, right? The next board meeting, finally we had the board meeting. A lot of stuff had happened. I don't think Eileen was there anymore. And they made a report that the human resources report, 0.02% of our staff here were Indigenous, right? And that was a ridiculous number to me. And it still is a ridiculous number. And it was ridiculous, should be a ridiculous number to yourself because it was wrong. But it did show at the time that they weren't counting and they weren't tracking and they didn't have all of the tools and they didn't have the people hired that you heard today that are promoting Aboriginal people working here, Aboriginal faculty coming here. And that was a bit of a turning point for me. And I ended up having a conversation with Ernie Barber and went to talk to Ernie about what I saw as a little bit of hypocrisy. I said, you can't say you're one of the 4 pillars and not have a plan. I said, you got to have a plan, and you got to put money with that plan. And so, in full credit to him, he manned up. He's a good leader, and I hope to see him again. But he agreed with me. He said that he wanted to make it a priority. He allocated a couple $1 million for Aboriginal research, and it became I think the board became embarrassed, and I think senior management became embarrassed that they needed more to do, and it became a real catalyst to move forward. In the meantime, we had an interim president that was a bit of a placekeeper. And geez, what do we do with this time, eh? And so we ended up arranging a trip to New Zealand, and went with our president, and Patty was there, and Dean Pertula was there, and Candace was there, and I think the First Lady was there. She's now the First Lady. I call her with great respect, Catherine. And we met all the universities in quite a few of the key ones in New Zealand, and we learned a lot. I know that there's things that were brought back immediately, such as the mentor program that the College of Education uses now, came directly from New Zealand. I think it was in place within about 2 months after we got back here. Peter, we all saw the value of having an Indigenous vice provost. And months passed, we have good fortune that Peter becomes our president. And he says indigenization is a priority, and he's making it happen. And I can tell you this, for any president of a U15 institution, very few of them would have sat through an entire session on indigenization. So let's give our president a hand because he deserves our respect. So then we had the TRC gathering, which was really incredible. And it was in this room, and the head table was over there someplace, or the podium. And we had some great speakers. Eugene Arcand, who was here, my friend and my very, very good friend, my best friend, helped us a lot, and he continues to help us. And a lot of energy and focus was put into reconciliation, into Indigenous work. And it seems that all of this stuff came out of nowhere, but it didn't, because people were working for a long time in this place. There have been people, generations of scholars and academics at the University of Saskatchewan that have been working here, from the founding of the Indian Teacher Education Program to Mr. Carter's work in setting up what has been a real country change in the Native Law Program. We've had leadership across the piece through history, and now I think where we are now is we're showing leadership to the country. And much work is being done, and I'm pleased to hear that we're moving forward with the Indigenous Vice Provost, because there needs to be a bit of coordination. I know it's hard to get academics to moving in a certain direction, but you need to have a conductor of your orchestra, right? You need to have to focus, to push forward. So I'm very glad that that's a position that they've agreed to move forward to, and so it's been my pleasure to work with 2 great presidents, Eileen Bush-Vishniak and Peter Stoichev. I'm enriched by my experience with those two individuals. I want to say a few things about what I think are important to keep focusing on in terms of the work that carries on here, because I'm still part of your family, but I'm not at the table with my voice. The words that the late Ben Weenie told me were repeated this morning in the pipe ceremony by Larry Oakes, and that the university has to help Indigenous people. The university needs to help Indigenous people. We need your help. We need your help keeping our languages alive. Cree, Dene, Dakota, Ojibwe, all of our languages, Michif. We need your help, because these languages will disappear. So the work that's occurring within the College of Arts and the College of Education, continue that work. Make it broader, make it bigger. We can't have pipe ceremonies, we can't have horse dances, we can't have our ceremonies in English. We have to have our relationship with our spiritual beings in our own tongue. So the focus on language preservation is critical. I think that's the #1 thing that I see going forward that the university has to focus on. I also want you to pay attention to what's happening in the world around you in terms of racism Last summer, we had a disturbing incident where a young First Nations person was killed with a broken vehicle. And I thought to myself later, I bet you CAA had a bunch of Indian applications after that. I know I got my card. I'm not going to pull into somebody's back. No, that was a joke, guys. Come on, it's too serious. But racism is an issue. And I think the answer to racism always is education. And whether I was in elementary school or all the way to this day, it's about cross-cultural education. It's about sharing our story, and that's what the TRC is all about. I strongly encourage the University of Saskatchewan to introduce in first year a citizenship class which talks about the history of this country, which talks about Indigenous people, which talks about treaties, which talks about the Indian Act, which talks about residential school, and which talks about the future. We have a history in this province where I think about this sometimes. In the 1930s, late 20s, the Ku Klux Klan had 40,000 members in Saskatchewan, right? That's a lot of people that paid allegiance to a racial world and racial differences. And you see hints of that coming from the United States and Europe. And that the only way to counter that is through knowledge. You have this world right now where people say alternative facts and fake news. The reality is our students coming through here have to know the truth about this history that our people have had with this country, which is not pretty. It's been very difficult for us, but we're still here and we're working together. And that's the whole concept, Wagutwin. We're a family. We're now a family. We live here together, and we work here together, and we're going to have difficult times. It's not always going to be easy, your relationship with the academic scholars. You hear from the students, because our people are exposed to so much negative, the negative of racism, the negative of poverty, the scars and the pain that poverty leaves within our communities, the suicides, the addictions. There's so much sadness, and that you need to understand where we come from. When we speak from a place sometimes of pain and anger, it might offend white people, it might offend non-native people, that sometimes our words are sharp. But our message is the same always, is that we want to be treated with respect, with equality, with dignity, the same as everybody else is, the same way that it should have been from the time that our treaties were signed. And that much of the harm that occurred to our people through treaties, through the Indian Act, through residential schools, is tied to this racist shit that is arising again in society, in the United States, and intolerance. Those things are the same poison which caused the Indian Act and which it caused residential schools. So that the university, in its role as a moral leader, has to continue to be that moral leader. And it has to move where society can't and where society won't, but where society will catch up. Because I tell you, when I came here 20 years ago, I could never imagine this. A president going to sweats, a president going to horse dances, our deans going to ceremonies, our deans coming to our communities, our students feeling welcome, a facility for ourselves. These are beautiful things. And we're leading the country, and you should be proud of it. This is important work that all of you are doing. And that do it together, try to be strong together. You're always going to have your differences, and you're going to have more differences with the budgets that are coming down the road in the next 2 months. This university is going to feel some pain, it's going to feel some squeezed, and that we now more than ever have to rely on this fact of Wagutwin, relatedness, that this commitment, I can tell you, at least from my perspective, is not going away while we have this president, we have this board, we have this chair, and we have the group of deans in the room that are so committed to this effort. So I want to thank all of you that do this every day on behalf of our people. That is what Wagutwin is about. I want to say to the Aboriginal scholars in the room, some very good friends of mine that I went to university with, and many others, that I'm very proud of all of you. You represent us, you represent our community, you have achieved what other people said we couldn't achieve, which is a PhD, that we're not dumber than other people, that we can compete, and we do compete, and that I'm proud of you. So keep it up, you Aboriginal scholars. You guys get along as best you can, as best. I know academics, sometimes you have a hard time getting along, but our Aboriginal scholars here get along pretty good. And I want you to encourage you that you represent us here, even though you're not elected. You represent us through your value system, through the efforts that you do, through your commitment to our people. So thank you for that. To the students and all of you that are working here, the students and the workers, I think sometimes the workers get bypassed, right? And they'd make the biggest difference. Like, where's Candace Wasacase-Lafferty? She's running around. There she is. Stand up, Candace. This woman deserves our applause and our recognition. She deserves our honor. She does much for our people. So, I found when I was in politics, or even in my life, you need something to motivate you. You need something to say, to to make you get up in the morning or to make you think when times are hard, like you need to think about one thing, whether it's, and what it is. And me, two things animated me in my political career and my continued career that happened to me, that happened near me or I experienced when I was in politics. One was when I was chief of Poundmaker, a young kid killed himself on a Monday morning. He ate gopher poison. He was a Kasokyo. And he drank all weekend, and I had a job for him the week before, and he wouldn't take the job. He went drinking, and something happened to him, or I don't know what happened to him, but he woke up on Monday morning thinking the world was too heavy, and he ate gopher poison, and he killed himself, and that's a terrible way to die, because it eats up your guts. And I had to be there when he died, because you're the chief and you get called there, and I had to send the people out of the room. And I held his hand. He died. So that bothered me a lot, because I thought, like, how come this guy had so little hope? How come this guy? What did I do wrong as a leader? On the other side of that, I was in PA probably 20 years ago now, because I'm so old. And we opened up the Northern Lights Casino. It was a great event because we had casinos and we had new revenue stream. I think there's a couple thousand jobs that we created. And he's a school teacher, I found out later. Old guy comes up to me, little man, and a little older man, and he says, are you Blaine Favel? I said, yes, I am. And he shook my hand and he said, I want to thank you for starting putting these casinos here and thanking you for your work here. And he says, I'm a principal of an inner city school, and I can tell you which of my students, he said, their parents are working or in training, because we paid those people to get trained before the casino opened. He said, because they're coming to school every day with lunches now, and they're coming to school with new running shoes, and they're trying harder in school and they feel more appreciated. And see, and for me, I use that because poverty, not poverty, right? And when people say, how come Aboriginal people can't succeed? Poverty, not poverty. It's not race sometimes, it's poverty. And our former national chief, Phil Fontaine, had that correct when he said it's a war on poverty. Because when they did their polling, that Canadians hated the concept of treaty rights. Canadians didn't like Aboriginal rights, but they were ashamed of poverty, and they're ashamed how badly Indian people in this country had been treated and the lives that they had. And so it became a war on poverty for Chief Fontaine. So whatever it is that motivates you, the point of my story is that use that for your power. Use that when things are really tough. Use that when you need to forgive somebody because you need to work with that person the next day. Use that when you're being rejected. Use that when you're successful. But find your thing that motivates you, that lifts you up, that makes you recommit to Indigenous people and Indigenous students, because we really do need your help, and this place is the right place. I want to close by saying I want to thank a couple people that are important to me. Evette Archand, he's here, and Eugene's a straight guy, and we had one of your colleagues at lunchtime telling her outrageous stories about when we used to drink, and so if you heard scream laughter coming from down there, was our crazy stories. But Eugene is from the Muskeg Lake Cree Nation, that those of you will hear from soon. And he went to residential school, and he had some hard times there, and he's my friend. So he goes out, this guy, so that you don't know, he would never tell you this. He has a hard time talking about what happened to him at residential school, but every week he'll go someplace, a high school, a community group, in Saskatchewan, outside of Saskatchewan, in universities, and he talks about his experience. He talks about residential schools and what happened to him and what his experience was. And then he can't do anything for a day or two afterwards because he's too emotionally overwrought, because he takes himself to a painful place in his life, and he uses that to remind people it shouldn't happen again. And so, Eugene, thank you for what you do, who you are, and but for that time you cheated at Willows, I would have beat you at golf, which is a different story altogether. But Eugene did something that is very helpful, which is part of our national fabric now, when we talk about the reconciliation forums that are now happening across the country. We had the first and the best one here, and everybody that participated and organized that should be very proud, because we created what I think is a national movement. I hope to, anyways, at the time. My big worry as we're scrambling around here, and Peter will remember that, is what happens next year, right? And so we had the good fortune for U of A. The provost was here. She picked up the phone, called her president. They hosted the next year, and now it's in Manitoba. But in the meantime, what we wanted people to do is not forget the focus, not to forget the focus of what we're about. And it's more than just talk. It's more than just study. And Eugene said he wanted what to be transferred. He talked to his other survivors across the country. They wanted a walking stick. and they wanted that stick to go across the country. And it was a walking stick for a purpose. It wasn't a talking stick, right? It was a walking stick. Walk the talk, right? And that's what this conference should be. This is what you should call your conferences, walk the talk, your next year's conference too, because that's what you guys are doing. And so the work that the University of Saskatchewan is doing is enormously important. It's enormously important for Indigenous people here in this province and across Canada and around the world. And that other people look to us to lead, and we are leading. So we should be proud of that. There's universities across the world that know who the University of Saskatchewan is because of its commitment to Indigenous people. And the future of this province is tied to how well we get this part right. And the future of this country is tied to how well we get this right. So as we go forward together, and there's going to be hard times, there'll be good times, right? That remember to work together and to try and accept, sometimes it's going to be hard, and the budgets are going to be hard coming up the next couple of years. So give the president your trust and give the senior administration your trust that they haven't taken us so far down the road and will leave us. So I believe that they will still continue, and these priorities will continue. I know that for sure. In closing, my friend Eugene, one of the things that Big Bird, his name, Eugene Archand, has done is that he's done what other leaders have done. And he's been a leader, and that is he's taken something bad that he had to experience, that no child should have to experience, and he turned it to something good, and he used it to inspire him in his leadership as a vice chief, and other chiefs have done this too. And I want to mention these people because they all were people that I worked with, and they're all people that deserve respect. They're no longer here. Chief Richard Poorman, Chief Roy Bird. Sorry, these are my friends. I'm sorry. These are my friends. Chief Irvin Starblanket, Chief Denton George, and my two dads, Gordon Oakes and Henry Fable. And what all of these guys did, and what all of this generation of Indian people are doing, is they keep fighting, and we don't give up. Agamemuk, don't give up. And we're strong people, and we're kind people, and thank you all of you for listening to me. Thank you for the kindness that you've showed me throughout my 3 years here. Erickson. Okay, buddy.
Thank you. Thank you, Blaine. I know it's getting late in the day, but I mean, I'm just an old Indian guy, and I can't tell Blaine Fable or Mr. Stoichkov to leave the stage. But they were incredible. You know, Saskatchewan, as grim as the picture is painted sometimes, we have it pretty good. You have it pretty good. I probably have the most difficult job because I'm not an academic at all. I didn't have that option. I was so damn institutionalized. I would rather have went to Sask Penn than University of Saskatchewan. And that's a sad truth. I want to thank Larry for raising the pipe for us this morning. I want to thank my fellow residential school survivor, Louise Haff, and the young lady from my community who did the fancy shawl dance. My daughter is a fancy shawl dancer, and she's also a graduate from University of Saskatchewan, and she's a registered nurse. So that means even more for what I observed this morning. I've been touched many times today by the eloquence of my people in the academic world. I think I try to go and see most of you. The truthfulness of my people. You know, to see the students up there in that panel was overwhelming for me. I'm just an old Indian guy from Muskeg, and that's one of my dreams, to see our people take control. I'm a nonconformist. I don't know what you know, but you will never know what I know unless I tell you about it. And those young people, excluding Terry, who went and shared the same experience I did, the hell their parents and their grandparents went through, and for them to be here, speaking with courage, bravery, no intimidation. I'm overwhelmed by that. And to see your president sit here all day. As Blaine said, I travel a bit. And what I'm seeing right now is delegation of reconciliation. The buzzword is starting to wear out. It's being thrown around wherever I go. Sometimes it sickens me. Indigenization, another new word, a buzzword. And I said to Peter and Blaine last year, be careful with this word. And those two words are scary words. 3 times today's speakers referred to the calls to action as recommendations. 3 times I just about puked. Get it in your minds, get it in our minds that they're not recommendations, they're not optional. It's a challenge to each one of us to make a difference if we want. If we don't want to, get the heck out of the way. That's how it is. We've had enough obstacles to meet any result in peaceful, cooperative, respectful coexistence. We don't need more. Everything you have done this morning and going into the afternoon made me feel so good. Until I walked to the back of the room and I seen the written word that's over there, and it's not healthy. So when we talk about reconciliation, don't be phony about it. Don't paternalize and use it in a token manner. Because as a person who went to school for 11 years in residential school, in that forum, I don't know what I'm reconciling. I've been physically, psychologically, and sexually abused. What did I do wrong? And yet I know, and some of you in here know, and seen me grow up as probably one of the most dysfunctional, angry young men you ever want to meet anywhere. And I do have to reconcile with the people I hurt from my own community and my own family. Now let's take indigenization. Don't ask this old Indian what that means, but it sounds pretty good. And I know back in 1969, when I got out of residential school, it wasn't a very good experience. Embrace indigenization. Make it something good. Embrace reconciliation, but don't play with it. Make it something good. There's no way to sanitize or censor the dark history of this province and this country. But we can make a difference by understanding and not playing with reconciliation and indigenization. I won't get involved in exercises that call for defining those things. I want to see what the result is going to be before I get involved there. What's happened in this university in the last 2 years is mind-boggling. I've traveled the country. I've seen. When I seen those 7 colleges this morning, 5 of them speaking, 2 of them mentioned and involved, it was overwhelming for me. As a matter of fact, it was intimidating. But encouraging me, it encouraged me so much. And I'm not blowing smoke. I was amazed to see and hear what was going on. You're to be applauded. But never rest on our laurels. It took 200 years of terrorizing my people to get where we are today. And to a certain extent, my people are still being terrorized. The economic indicators of potash, uranium, oil and gas, and farming has excluded Indigenous people. Because if we were not here, if we were not in jail, if our kids weren't in care, if our people weren't filling University Hospital, City Hospital, St. Paul's Hospital, we're an economic indicator, and we're tired of being the recipients of services. We're tired of having everyone do things for us. And the challenges you presented today, what I observed here today, it gives me hope. But that whole mentality has to change. What I've noticed when I come to conferences and go to conferences and speak is we all go through a process of wellness. We're empowered. But as soon as we go and have that sleep and we wake up in the morning, we implement everything we did the day before the conference back into a colonized way of doing things. And it's not only non-Indigenous people. It's my own people. Newcomers. Please don't adopt the stereotype that exists about us. We try our best not to adopt the stereotypes that exist about you. Healing is awakening. I'm not okay. I do this because of public understanding, public education, and try and get to that point of reconciliation. The truth has been easy. This last part's been hard. And when Blaine, Peter, and the University of Saskatchewan are doing what you're doing under Chancellor Romano, don't rest on your laurels. Keep this momentum going. And walk the talk. It's important. Get yourselves a pair of shoes. Get them one size too small or half a size too small. You're on your own after this year. You had the national conference, now this. A great start. Walk the talk. Don't use these buzzwords for buzzwords. Get that pair of moccasins. Walk around early in the morning in the grass with the dew that Mother Earth has provided us. And they're going to be custom. They'll fit you custom. It's got to be done. And they don't have to be beaded moccasins like this. But if you're going to accept a call to action every day, something has to remind you to do that. And if it's wearing your moccasins so that you walk the talk, do it. But if you find some other form, do that too. I sincerely, sincerely thank all of the organizing committee, Candace, Patty, all the people that were acknowledged today, for bringing me, a street kid, after I left residential school in 1969, has no university training. Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that I'd be speaking to the greatest minds in this province and in this country. It's been a great honor. Keep up the good work. I can't criticize it because I know I couldn't do it. Thank you very much. Oh, Candace, thank you. All right. Now, I don't want everybody to leave the room, especially the settlers. We're going to do a Indian aerobics. We have my friend here, Hunter Blassingame, from Northern Cheyenne, from Lame Deer, Montana. The round dance is one of the dances that actually began with the Cree people, the Plains Cree people, and now it's kind of spread all over Western Canada. If you get invited to a round dance, come on up, buddy. When you get invited to a round dance, you know, many times our people right now, because of lack of understanding, are taking shortcuts, and they're going to the round dance part. They're missing the boat. The round dance is there for a reason. Sometimes it's a memorial. Sometimes it's a celebration or a grad. Yeah, I think somebody shared that with you today. And then there's a feast. There's a pipe ceremony, then a feast. And then you get into the round dance. We had a pipe ceremony this morning. We had a feast this afternoon and for breakfast. And now you're going to dance. The round dance. So it's basically, I was watching APTN, and they were saying, well, how do you do this? I say, well, you just basically take a side step, and he's being real polite. Actually, it was my friend Harry Francis. You just take a side step, and then you just dance around and socialize. Bull! You got to move your bannock buns, okay? This is a social dance. It's a snagging dance. So, Jeremy, you know it is, right? So let's go. My buddy here, we're going to wind this up and enjoy it. Enjoy it. It's so easy that it's going to make you want to come back for more. And I'm going to announce it. Hunter, come on. So we're going to do a 4-start round dance. Chancellor Emeritus with the President. We'll start it off. We'll go left to right. And you can just join in wherever you want, but let's finish the circle before we get out. Go ahead, buddy. Sure. Somebody help out the new chancellor over there. There we go. Finish the circle. Welcome, Judge Dave Arnott. Okay, Chief of the FSIN is here. Now you shake your bannock buns. Let's start. Enjoy this one. Oh, shake hands with one another. And how about one more nice round of applause for my friend Hunter? What an awesome song, what an awesome singer. Thank you, Hunter. Oh.